And I remember being in the production room, like in the back room. I got all my ingredients there, and we were waiting for the PO to come in from Walmart while I was there at the manufacturing facility. Because I was like, I don't want to make this until we get the PO, but they weren't sending it. And it was just like terrifying, my
Yeah.
life on the line. Finally, we got it, and it was double what I expected it to be.
Hey, friends. Hey, and welcome back to Shelf Talks. I'm your host, Roberta, and today I'm happy to chat with Rachel Klein. Rachel has an interesting story that I really can't wait to hear more about, from contemporary dancer to founder and CEO of Revival Food Co. A delicious, which I've actually tasted. I did one of your recipes on social the other day, so it tasted really great. Premium line of almond butters. Welcome, Rachel.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, I'm so excited to talk to you today. Today is going to be a really impactful conversation. So I think let's just kind of dive in. I know this year marks 10 years, 10-year anniversary of your brand, which is pretty amazing. So congratulations on that. But take us back to before 2014, kind of where you were, what you were doing, and what really sparked the idea of starting a brand.
Yeah, my path is definitely unusual. I was a dance major, a modern dance major at IU Bloomington, Indiana University. And then I switched midway through my college career, like in sophomore to junior year, I switched to exercise science because I thought I wanted to do physical therapy. So I always kept dancing. I was super exercise addicted. I just couldn't stop focusing on my health and wellness and trying to always be the best version of myself. My poor roommates had to endure a lot of really nasty, healthy foods in our house. I remember making it was a carrot cake. And I was like, this is carrot cake without any refined sugar, without any bad things at all, no bad oils, etc. And they were like, Rachel, this is absolutely nasty. So they laugh now that I actually own a food company because honestly, signs did not point to that. Um, but it was during that time that I actually had an eating disorder and I didn't realize it until years later. But my focus on health became so extreme that it was becoming a problem in my daily life. I couldn't go on a spring break trip with my friends without bringing all of my own food with me. And I couldn't lay my head down on the pillow at night without knowing that I have expended all of my energy and that I went on a run or I cycled or whatever. So when I stopped dance, I just started moving into the next thing and the next thing and the next thing. And during that journey, then, of coming to a realization that I might have a problem, I really started focusing then on what does it mean to be truly well? What does wellness even mean? What does a holistic lifestyle actually mean? And so I went to Australia on a study abroad while I was in school. And it was there that I started encountering whole foods for the first time in a normal daily living situation, that in Australia they didn't have the processed foods that we have. They didn't have all of the processed foods everywhere you look and everything that you eat. They were drinking whole milk on a regular basis. And I was like, what? We don't do
Ah!
like skim or almond milk. Like, I mean, the whole milk was like evil back then. I mean, this was like 20, I don't know, 2012, 2013. Like, who's drinking whole milk?
Right.
And so, I gained weight, but I gained muscle and I felt good and I felt like clean. So it really set me on this journey of, after I graduated college, I was pretty aimless in my direction of what I was going to do. I was a massage therapist. I was a yoga instructor, a Pilates instructor. I got certified in aerial yoga. I was working at Lululemon. I had just this myriad of things that I was doing with my time and my energy. But I was also just like really into making everything from scratch because of this experience that I had. I'd be like, man, this bread is disgusting that we're buying from the store. Why is it still fresh 2 weeks later? It doesn't make sense. So I would start making my own. And I did that with almost everything, that I would just look at it and question it and be like, why
Mm.
is this so gross? Or why is this still fresh? Like, how can I do this differently? And so almond butter happened to be one of those things. that my parents, so I was living with my parents at the time. My dad's an Ironman triathlete, ate a lot of peanut butter. Yeah, he was like peanut butter and banana every morning before his first workout. And I was like, all right, Dad, peanut butter is actually not that healthy for you. It's fine to have when you're just having it as a treat or every once in a while, but to eat it every day on a regular basis, it's got a lot of saturated fats in it, a lot of, things that just, it's legume, it's hard on your stomach, hard on digestion, etc., mold. So I was like, let's do almond butter. So I start buying almond butter from the store, and I was like, that is so
Mm.
gross. Honestly, I tried so many brands. Every brand I could get my hands on. It was either that it tasted good, but it had sugar in it, some sort of sweetener, whether it's maple syrup or honey or
Mm.
coconut sugar, or it was just bland and pasty. And I was like, I don't get it. I like almonds. So why is almond butter so hard to make? Just like clean and simple. So for whatever reason, it became my fixation. And I would make a new batch in my food processor every week. And I made this one flavor that was so good. And it's literally still the vanilla sea salt today. It's pretty much the same exact thing, just on a much larger scale. But it was dry roasted almonds, coconut oil, pink Himalayan sea salt, and vanilla bean powder. And I was like, wow, that is divine. It is so good. So I made it all the time, had it as wedding favors at my wedding because this was like my thing that I made all the time. And I just thought it'd be funny and cute. Everybody said I should sell it because they'd never had anything so delicious in their life, they all said. And so we moved from Louisville to Indy. We were living in Louisville at the time, moved to Indianapolis right after my husband and I got married. And I just thought, what the heck? I'm going to try this thing out. I really wanted to open up a yoga studio, but because we felt like we were in transition, I was like, I will just do this almond butter thing as a quote unquote practice business, which is like last words. There is no such thing as practice business, in case anybody is wondering. That was my mindset going into it. So I really didn't have a business plan. I didn't have a growth plan. I was just like, I like this almond butter and I'm going to try selling it. So I did the farmers markets, and that's my long-winded story of how I got started.
Wow, that's amazing. I mean, I will say, although you had multiple jobs, it seems like you still kind of stayed in that whole wellness kind of aspect of life. So what
Yeah.
did you, when you were like thinking of that flavor, how did you even, the ingredients definitely are super clean and clear, but how did you even think about putting all of those flavors together or all of those ingredients?
Yeah, everything always had a purpose, and that's true with every flavor that I've done. Is I wanted a little hint of salt, but I wanted it to be something that did something good for your body. So everything that goes into every jar does something good for you. So there's nothing
Mm.
that's milked. So, the raw coconut oil has the healthy fats that complement the dry roasted almonds really well. Plus it helps my favorite thing about adding coconut oil to it is that it helped to take away the tackiness
Hmm.
when you're eating the almond butter. I hated that feeling of just like the tacky stick to the roof of your mouth
Oh,
feeling
yeah.
of these butters. And so the coconut oil kind of took away that real tackiness. There's obviously it's sticky still. It's almond butter. Any nut butter would be that way, but it's a little bit less. And you've got the healthy fats of the raw coconut oil, then the pink Himalayan sea salt. You get all the great vitamins and minerals from the pink Himalayan sea salt. And then the vanilla bean powder is rich in potassium and other minerals. And then what else am I missing? That's it. So I was always every single ingredient. I want it
Had
to be,
meaning.
yeah, something that's functional, but also I really love that kind of salty sweet balance that you get from adding that pink Himalayan sea salt with the vanilla bean powder. And so that was true with every flavor that I made. I was just making what I wanted. So like I love chai and chai spiced drinks. And so I was like, I don't know, I've never had a chai spiced almond butter before. So I personally mixed all of the individual ingredients and taste tested chai tea against my mixture of chai spices that I put into the almond butter until I got it exactly right. And same with the raw cacao coconut. I was like, I want chocolate, but I don't want it to be sugary still. Like, how do you get the benefits of the chocolate, like the antioxidant benefits of raw cacao powder and cacao nibs, and put that in with, the nut butter? And so that to me is the fun part where I feel kind of like the mad scientist that I just really enjoyed making all of these flavors that were creative but still functional
Yeah.
and taste great without having to add any sweeteners to it.
Yeah, I think that that's what makes it unique too, is that it does have like really fun flavors, and then you do a really great job of giving ideas on how to like put it together. So I did the toast with the sea salt and vanilla and strawberries on top, which I
Ooh,
never even thought of putting strawberries and mixing it like on a piece of toast, but it was really good. It was really
because
good.
again, then you get like that extra sweetness from the strawberries and like the tart and like the mellow almond butter. Oh, it's like
Yeah,
so good. There's
so
so
good.
many great toasts and so many great recipes you can do with it.
Yeah, I'll definitely have to try more. So how long before you kind of started to you ideated and were trying this in your kitchen so you actually had a formula that you were like, this is it?
Well, once I moved to Indianapolis and decided I'm going to try this thing out, I realized I needed to learn a little bit about the food industry. Like, how do I actually make this a legit product that I can sell? You can't just sell it out of your house. I mean, you can by cottage laws. I mean, there's that where you can do cottage law and sell at the farmer's market.
Right.
But I knew that I wanted to get into a few local stores. So I just started asking around, how do I do this legitimately? And so then it helped me to understand, okay, I need to get my recipe down. I need to make sure that I can do it the same exact way each time.
Mm-hmm.
I need to get this, the health and food safety to come and inspect my commercial kitchen that I took over a commercial kitchen. Well, it was a commercial kitchen, but it wasn't certified in any way. And so I had to get it certified and really learn the ins and outs of how do you do this legitimately. If you really want to sell into at least some local stores,
Mm-hmm.
let's figure out the system. And so, you know, I really, when it comes to scaling and, building out the flavors at scale, I always just started with, I'm not going to make this from the beginning as a scalable product. I'm going to make it the product that I want it to be. I'm not thinking about how cheap can I make this? What kind of ingredients can I do at scale? Because honestly, if you're using real clean foods, I don't know. I feel like there's always a way to scale it up. You just have to be willing to take the cost.
Yeah.
And that's something that to me was a non-negotiable from day one is I'm going to only put ingredients in here that I truly believe in, that I would feed my own family. And so it didn't honestly feel like a big deal to go from this is how I'm making it in my home kitchen to I'm going to sell this now to the public. I just started shopping at Costco to get more bulk containers and then eventually started, calling down like wholesale websites on like how can I get like, superfoods at wholesale prices. And slowly but surely I started buying the same ingredients, just more of it, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. And then you started selling at farmers markets. And did you have a website or were you selling online or was it just through that market?
I had a website. Nobody went to it, but I did. And I actually, in the beginning days, the name of the company was Pure and Good Foods. That was the name of the brand. So when I first started, if you look at anything way back in the archives, it was Pure and Good Foods for the first, golly, I think 2 years, maybe. And then once I got into my first grocery store, I realized I was like, oh, I should probably trademark this name. And that's when it all went down. And I was like, oh, pure food was not remarkable. Somebody had pure good, I think. Stupid, but I look back and I'm so grateful because it led me down the path of the name Revival, which I love so much more than Pure and Good Foods.
Yeah. And is there a meaning to that revival name? Like where did you even come up with that?
Yeah, so you heard my story of how I got to this place of creating a food brand. And so it's really my own personal revival of what it is to be truly healthy and clean and holistically focused on wellness, not just on counting the calories and counting out each and every almond. It was this idea of creating more of a revival in my own health, but also in putting something out there in the world that could help create a revival in other people's health and wellness, So,
Yeah.
and more on not just the product itself, but also being a light shining in the food industry for something, that stands for something better than what we're finding on the shelves.
Yeah. No, that's great. I love that. I love that.
Yeah.
So you're selling in farmers market, not really online, and then you were doing this for 2 years before you kind of thought about going into retail stores.
Yeah, I'd say about two-ish years before at least I did the farmers markets for about 5 years actually.
Okay.
And then started getting into some of the local stores while I was doing the farmers markets. And it was only, it was stores that I could personally deliver to.
Mm.
In this time, I also had my first baby too. And, in my world, I'm like, what's the big deal? I want to have a baby, I'll have a baby and I'll do the business and
Of
he'll just come with
course.
me.
Of course.
Fine. Understand what the problem is. Uh, So during the season, and then we had another one 19 months later. So that
Oh,
was
wow.
crazy time. Again, no big deal. I can handle it all because that's what moms do. So this was a wild season of, having like a baby and a toddler and delivering a lot of the product by hand, making it all by hand. I would hire on help. I had, a few people who would come in and out to help me make product in the kitchen. But a lot of it was, I mean, it was all very manual. I mean, we were making each batch in a stone grinder and then pouring it into a big bucket, hand mixing each one, filling it with an ice cream scooper each jar, and then hand sealing with
Oh, wow.
each jar ourselves. So it was a challenge to do all this. And we got into our first grocery store along that time, which was like our first real grocery store was Market District,
Okay.
which is, kind of based East Coast, but they were opening up their first store in Indianapolis. So they gave us the opportunity. They're like, hey, can you scale with us? Naturally, I say, yeah, of course, no problem. Uh, so they wanted me to work with the distributor, which I had no idea what that was at the time. And I'm like, that would be great. Let's do it. And then because of that opportunity, it opened up another opportunity for us to launch into all of the Indiana Kroger locations through a local program that they were doing. And so, within a month or two, we go from making, 50 jars a week and selling it at the farmer's market to suddenly we had a PO for like 500 jars. And I still remember being in our commercial kitchen, it was like 50 square feet. I mean, it was so tiny. And literally we had all the boxes lined up behind us, just a huge stack, one whole wall of our 6 packs of almond butter. And it all came crashing down and they were in glass jars.
Oh my
And it was like,
gosh.
oh my God. Like
Your
that was
heart.
the moment. Yeah, I was like, I don't think this isn't working anymore. So that was, my first opportunity to scale, which was a great learning opportunity. And my first realization, like, if I want to do this, I'm going to have to do things differently
Yeah.
because I can't personally manage it with a baby and a toddler at home and trying to balance people and the production and the jars and the driving the carts down the hallway to put it into the distribution truck by hand. I was like, this is not working. I'm not having fun.
Yeah.
So,
So can you go back to when you actually got that, initial deal with the grocery store? How did that even come about? Was that like how did you even kind of connect with the retailer or buyer?
yeah. So, what happened for us in that situation is because I had worked to get our products into a lot of the local stores, I think we were only in 12 local stores at the time. The buyer for Market District had come to Indianapolis and they love local products. So they started shopping around at a lot of the local stores and they saw my product on the shelf at one of the local stores. So I remember getting a voicemail from the buyer of Market District and they were like, hey, we're having a in-person pitch day for our new store opening and we'd love for you to come and pitch your products to us. And I was like, who is this person? What is he talking about? What is Market District? I was so confused. I called him back and I was like, I guess I can come. I mean, I don't know what you want me to do, but I guess I'll bring my peoples. And I still remember I go into this big, huge like ballroom. completely full with staff. I mean, it was huge, full of staff, full of brands from all over the Midwest that had come to pitch their products. And I am the last person of the day because naturally I was late, mom life. And I come in and I just remember thinking, good thing I'm wearing my nice jeans. Like, so I go with my box of samples with labels that I had printed myself from my home office, and put on with a, Avery label printing machine.
Right.
And I sit down and I'm like, here's my almond butters. I gave them my pitch. And so that's how it happened. And that's why they were like, could you do this? And one of the things that I know is, I'll call it a spiritual gift that I have, is absolute delusion. I will be the most successful person in the room. I went to that table and I was like, yes, I can deliver. Here's how great my products are. You've never had anything this amazing in your life. And they were like, honestly, we've never had almond butter like this. This is incredible. We would love it.
Oh,
Could you
wow.
do? I mean, they were saying yes on the spot, which I know didn't happen to these other brands that came. And so they just loved me. They loved the brand. They were like, we want you to be in all of our stores. Immediately introduced me into a distributor that was like in the next table over, like, hey, come over here. We want you to meet Rachel. We want you to work with her brand. We want you to distribute for, us and, get her into some other stores so
Oh,
she can scale.
amazing. Wow.
Yeah. So that's how that happened. And that's where, I wouldn't, as a small brand, it feels like, oh, I'm only in like 12, 15 stores. I'm delivering it myself. You never know what that's going to turn into,
Mm-hmm.
who's going to discover it. Like
Yeah.
that was my moment of discovery, and I wasn't even pitching for it, you know? Oh,
I think that,
I
I
was,
mean, that's definitely like one of the benefits of being on shelf is just that discovery, not for new, not only new consumers, but also, to what happened to you, just other buyers seeing it. I mean, buyers comp shop all the time to see what's new and different out there to get in their stores. So that's pretty amazing. And I think it's also great that they connected you with a distributor versus you having to kind of do the research on your own to try to figure that out.
yeah, that was huge because, like I said, I knew nothing about that world. I didn't even know what CPG stood for at the time.
You're like, I'm just
So
making my almond butters in my 50 square
I
foot.
came over here.
So once you were in store, so once they said yes, we want you to come into stores, what was that time between the yes versus your product actually being on shelf?
Still probably about 6 months before we got on the shelf at Market District. But, the other opportunities with the distributor opened up within probably a month or
Oh, wow.
two. I went in for a meeting, I remember about 2 weeks later, and I was like, so what is this? What do we do? And this was another situation where it was like right time, right place, which I think is true for a lot of, brands, unfortunately. Sometimes it is just luck. I went into their office and they were setting up this kiosk that was going to go kind of like a standalone local kiosk that they were going to put in all of the Kroger stores. And they were like, we actually still have a gap that we're looking to fill. Could we put your almond butters in there? I was like, okay. And that was to go into 250 stores.
Oh my
And they wanted,
gosh.
multiple cases into all of those stores. And so, I mean, that opportunity happened really quickly because they were like, well, we're going to have to go, we're launching it like in a few weeks. And I was like, okay. And so I just rallied up my friends and I was like, you all need to come and help me make almond butter because we have a big order to fill. But so that timeline was unusual, but you have to, I'm somebody who's like, say yes and figure it out later because what a great opportunity that was to help me get exposure and, launch into all these retailers or all of these Kroger stores. And, I was like, I could say, and I probably should have said no. Logic would say you should tell them no because you're not ready.
Right.
But again, that delusion that has helped me gain the success I've had helped me to say yes, and I'll figure it out later. And I
Yeah.
did,
Yeah. Yeah.
I did. And I had fun doing it. It was a blast.
Did you have to change anything from like the packaging or product that you were selling in the farmers market to when you actually kind of scaled and went into retail?
Yeah, so that was the moment that I had to change my brand. My entire brand changed within 2 weeks. I remember, oh my God, this is all coming back. I remember this is when I was like, oh, I need some legit labels because I was printing it all by hand in my house.
Right.
And so when we got this opportunity for Kroger, suddenly I'm like, okay, I need legitimate labels. Okay, let me trademark my name. Okay, I have to change my brand name and update my entire labels. And so I did all of that. I remember I spent 2 full days doing this deep, deep dive into like what will my new name be? From Pure and Good Foods to Revival. And then going from that to like completely redesigning a new label, getting all the right information on it, getting a printer to do it, which I found somebody local that would print the labels for me. And I was like, you need to do this as fast as humanly possible. And I did it.
Wow. Now, is that the white label? I saw you've kind of had a
Yeah,
couple of different iterations, so that was the white kind of label.
that was one of the many white labels, but that was the first white label that I had. Yeah.
That's crazy. So,
Yeah.
once you were in stores, how did you did you do a lot of sampling? Like, what did it look like in regards to you kind of garnering customers?
So I leaned a lot into the program that I was in, this Indiana Grown program, because I didn't know much about what I could do as far as sampling and promotions or anything goes. I had no plan going into it because, it was all being thrown at me.
Right.
But I would show up anytime that they had events where they were doing this, like, hey, we want to support local at Kroger. We're doing a big launch party or we're opening up a new store. I always showed up, as much as I was able to. I would just show up and, be in front of my brand. I honestly didn't do that much. I probably could have done more, but I just didn't know. Plus, I had a baby and a toddler at home.
Yeah.
So I was like, I'm doing the best I can. My product looks cute on the shelf, and that's as good as I can.
That's what you're gonna get. That's
But I remember I definitely I would tell anybody who would listen to me that, like, hey, if you're going into Kroger and you see my jars, please make sure that they look good. Like, that's a really easy way to just help with merchandising.
yeah.
It's just like, any and all friends, people all over the state. I'm just like, because some of the jars, because it was these glass jars, some of them would leak. And I was like, if you see that, please just like ask for a towel and clean it off. Clean it off. Like, don't get them to return it. Like, don't get them to throw it away because that'll come back to us. I'm like, clean it up, make it look pretty, set it up nicely. And people did. And honestly, that would help because then they would also tell whoever was around them, oh, my friend made this. Oh, this is my friend's
Oh,
product.
yeah.
So it helped a lot, actually.
You're like turn the label straight, make sure.
After that, I was like, this is merchandising 101. Okay.
So, then what were sales like at the beginning? Did you have strong sales? Were there things that you felt, you could change or should change as you're kind of continuing to navigate there?
Yeah, our sales weren't awesome. And a big part of that was because of where the product was in the store. And this was a big learning for me that we were on this local kiosk, which cool. People are like, oh, local products, I'm going to go check that out. Problem is that this local kiosk was in different places in every
Hmm.
store. Sometimes it was in the meat section, sometimes it was over the spices, sometimes it was at the front of the store. And so I realized we had a major problem with just, merchandising again, like at the store level. They really didn't do a great job executing this local set. And so it made our sales look pretty bad. And everybody had, low sales. But I realized too that our product specifically is something that people weren't buying every single week. And it was a pretty high price point for that set. Everybody else, there was a salsa company and their salsas were like 4.99. My almond butter was like 11.99. So, especially when you're not comparing it to other similar products in the same category, when you see 4.99 versus 11.99, you're not going to pick that 11.99 product. You're like, I want to
Right.
support local, but like not that much.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that was a good learning from that experience because I realized how important it is for us to be merchandised in a place where we're going to be the most successful.
Mm-hmm.
And while it was a really cool opportunity to launch into all of these stores, it didn't look great. And so Kroger didn't love, I mean, I was like, if my goal is to launch into Kroger nationwide, this isn't how I want to do it.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's a good lesson learned. And I've taken that into other opportunities, going forward that I've actually said no to because of that experience. Not that Kroger ever said no specifically to me launching, but I honestly was like, our velocity was so low in that set that it wouldn't help us at all,
Yeah.
by saying, hey, you're already in Kroger. They'd be like, well, let me check out your numbers. Eek, that's bad,
Yeah,
you know?
yeah, yeah. I think too,
So
like it's great to have it in that, calling out the local, but also when it's away from everything else where a consumer typically is coming into store and saying, hey, I want to get almond butter. If your brand is separated from that, it doesn't allow for that whole, opportunity to explore and try something different and new. So that definitely is
and almond
challenging.
butter back then too was still very new. People were still just figuring out, oh, almond butter is an alternative to peanut butter. I would remember doing sampling events at Kroger, and especially in Indiana, people were like, wait, so what is it? What do I do with it? Well, you eat it just like you would peanut butter. I mean, I kid you not, had people putting it on their skin. So I was like,
What?
oh,
So there was an education component
yeah,
to
yeah.
selling
So
this.
I feel like there was a lot working against me that I
Yeah,
realized, which is why it was so valuable to do because it helped me to understand, okay, maybe launching into conventional at the start isn't a great idea. And also being in a set where people are so out of context is
yeah,
not a great idea. They're seeing
yeah.
my product totally out of context and that's confusing for them.
Yeah.
So
So then what were kind of next steps? So you're at Kroger, you're at Market District, you've gotten into some additional stores. Was that over the course like every year, or was there a time period between that, or kind of what was happening from a retail expansion standpoint?
yeah, it was a real slow growth for me during that season because I was focusing on staying home with the kids too. And so I remember just like letting it ride. I was like, I'm going to just stay afloat. That was the phrase that I said to myself. I'm just staying afloat. I mean, our revenue at the time was like 25,000. It was just like, we're just staying in here. This is fine. I'm still loving that I have a business. I'm loving that we're getting product out there in the world. And I always pitch it still to like some small stores. And I mean, I'm always pitching myself everywhere I go. I never leave home without almond butter samples in my bag. Somewhere because you're
Just
going to
in
talk
case. Just in case.
upstairs. So, I never stopped growing, but it was very slow, slow growth during that season. So all of that came to a head kind of in 2019 when I was kind of riding that wave for so long of just slow growth. And I was like, all right, I'm getting pretty burnt out. This is exhausting staying in this middle space. I was ready for a change, like we've talked about, where I'm like, this isn't working for me anymore. I'm not really enjoying not having enough money to hire the help that I want, still doing everything by hand. It all felt very manual. And so I decided, well, now's a good time to go to a large trade show and see what can happen. So I went out in 2018 to check out Expo East for the first time, Natural Products Expo East. And I went with my, gosh, I think he was 4 months old at the time, my second born. And I went out there just with him and just walked the show just to see what it was.
Hmm.
And that was I would tell anybody who is interested in getting your feet into the food industry in a real way, you need to go and
Yeah.
just walk it, see the show, get a feel for like what is happening out there. I mean, my eyes were just wide open, like, whoa, I had no idea this is how it all worked. So I go back home, regroup, and then I decide, I think I want to go. This is my moment. I went in with an ultimatum. I'm either going to get one major retailer, I'm going to scale this thing way up and blow the roof off of it, or I'm going to not get that major retailer, and I'm okay with that. I'm going to use that as like, God is telling me I just need to like bring it all back down, bring it in-house, just like only sell online, get out of a lot of the stores that we're in, and just simplify the whole thing.
Yeah.
So I go to Expo East in 2019. I bought everything for my booth from IKEA so I could return it afterwards, which is bad, but that's the times. I
Right,
brought
right.
me so my friends could help me and I didn't have to pay anybody to help me, do the whole thing. And it was there that I ended up meeting the buyer for Walmart of
Oh,
all
wow.
retailers. I did not have my eyes set on Walmart at all. I was thinking Whole Foods. And I mean, I talked to all the brands that I want or the stores that I wanted, Whole Foods, Sprouts, etc. But the Walmart buyer and I had a really great connection. And she just loved it. She's like, I've never, seen or tried anything like this before. And, my brain immediately is like, yeah, I think this would be great at Walmart. She's like, you do? I'm like, I do. I think this would be amazing at Walmart. I think, what if we just tried 300 stores to start? Just see if it works. She was like, yeah, that's not a bad idea.
You
I mean,
recommended the store count?
yes. And again, I'm like totally BSing. I have no idea what I'm talking about. She has no idea that all of the jars that she's checking out are ones that I literally filled by hand. And I'm like, no problem. Yes, we can launch in a Walmart nationwide.
Oh my gosh.
And it's that delusion
Yeah.
that is magic. It's like magical delusion, I'll call it, because it helps open up doors that would otherwise be closed. If I had the mindset going into it that, like, I'm just a small business, I'm nothing, I am so incapable. I
Yeah.
was also pregnant with my third at the time that we go to
Wow.
this. And so, I could easily believe this story that, like, this isn't possible. What
Yeah.
am I even, why am I here? I don't belong.
Yeah.
Because I had every reason to believe I didn't belong in that space. I mean, here I am, the girl that buys everything from IKEA to return. And I've got these brands next to me that are just, these built out, they've spent $20,000 on their booth. And I'm just like little old me over here with my friends and my husband, and we're just passing it out. So I have this conversation with her. And I'm like, well, that went pretty well. I mean, who knows where that'll go? And then I follow up, like you do. I follow up with everybody from the show, but I felt really great about her. I just was like, I like her as a person. And this is another one of those like magical superhero powers that I feel like I've had in CPG is just being a human to other humans. To not act like, oh my God, you're Walmart. Okay. All right. Yes, we are prepared. We are all things. Like, they want to see that you're a real person too.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I think that candid conversations, you can see if it's real or not real. But I always treated everybody and always will, just like you're another gal, just like me. You have, a lot of influence and that's important. But it doesn't mean I need to like worship you like an idol. I
Right.
just want to talk to you and see if this is possible.
Yeah. Hmm.
And so I follow up with her, I think 4 times before she ever responded to a single email. But I didn't stop following up because I really was like, out of all the people that I met, I felt the best about her.
Most connected.
And you just have to be tenacious and keep trying because they've got a full inbox
Mm-hmm.
and their world does not revolve around you. So keep trying.
Yeah.
Try again and try again and try again until I'm like, she hasn't said no. So before I get a no, I'm going to keep sending another email. Finally, she emails back and was like, can you come down for a meeting? I was like, does she realize I live in Indiana, not
Right.
Arkansas?
But I'm sure I know what you said.
Naturally, I'm like, yes, I can come tomorrow. Like, no need to rush down. Let's schedule it for 2 weeks. And so I go down. I'm 27 weeks pregnant at the time, and it feels like a redo of my first walking into Market District. I got my nice jeans on, but this time I'm pregnant, 27 weeks pregnant. I've got my samples in a box. I have a PowerPoint ready to go. And I'm like, oh my God, walking into the home office in Bentonville, Arkansas for Walmart was surreal. I
Oh
was
my
like,
gosh.
cannot believe I'm here.
I'm sure it's like
So
crazy.
Yeah, crazy. And, long story short, she says yes while I'm there. I'd love to get you on. Let's do it. And we didn't even talk price. It was just like, I love the product. I love what you're doing. Let's try it.
Oh, wow.
And so that was in October of 2019. Then fast forward, I have my baby in February. COVID hits. I don't have a co-packer yet because why? I don't know. I'm a crazy person. And I sent her an email and I'm like, hey, the pandemic is whatever's going on. I mean, it was so early in it. So, the pandemic hits. We don't know what's happening. And so I sent her an email and I'm like, hey, are we still good to be launching into these 300 stores in May of 2020?
Okay.
And she's like, yes, we're still good. Well, let's push it back a month. And instead of 300 stores, are you okay with doing 1,000? What do I say? Of
Sure.
course, no problem.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. So I then have to get my shit together as fast as humanly possible. And, and she's like, you have a newborn baby. Just chill. You're fine. She doesn't know that I really didn't have anything
Right. Not
figured out.
prepared at all. Right.
No, because in my head, I don't know. I was thinking I could still do 300 stores. We could still probably do that ourselves. I don't know. But at 1,000 stores, zero chance. We're going to need a co-packer.
Yeah.
And I wanted a co-packer anyways. And this was like the whole point of putting that ultimatum into the universe when I went to the trade show was like, I'm done with doing this by hand. I want to scale up and be a little bit more hands off so I can work on the business, not in the
In the
business.
business. Yeah.
So a month or two later, it's April, and I was searching for co-packers. And I remember reaching out to some consultants, and they were like, you have lost your damn mind. Like, there is no way you're going to get a co-packer this
Enough
short
time.
notice. Yes. And I was like, yes, I will. You just wait. And so I did. I found the person myself. I found the group, and we got there in June, early June. We were supposed to be launching at the end of June, 2020.
Okay.
And I remember being in the production room, like in the back room. I got all my ingredients there, and we were waiting for the PO to come in from Walmart while I was there at the manufacturing facility because I was like, I don't want to make this until we get the PO, but they weren't sending it.
Mm.
And it was just like terrifying, my
Yeah.
life on the line. Finally, we got it, and it was double what I expected it to be.
Was that because they added more stores, or just the inventory that they wanted for the 1,000 was higher than you
It
thought
was
about?
just higher. Instead of getting a case of each flavor for each store, they ordered two cases of each flavor for each store. I was like, logically, I guess that makes sense, but like, they didn't give me any warning. They're thinking
You
this
could,
girl's got it all
right?
today.
Yeah, she can handle it.
Like, all right, well, let's double what we were going to do. Luckily, I had enough ingredients. And so we did, for our first production run, we made 100,000 jars.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
And did it
So
deliver on time? Did you get it delivered on time?
no, it did not deliver on time because a million things happened in between where the trucks were delayed. They got somehow off. I think we had two full truckloads that we were shipping to our warehouse in Chicago from California, where we made it all to Chicago. And so there was some delay in shipment. I forget what happened to the trucks. It was some stupid logistics issue. Then it all gets into the warehouse and they have to process it all. And I have my EDI set up, like this whole EDI system. And again, I didn't have a broker. I had zero support for launching into Walmart besides asking some mentors who have had products in Walmart before.
Oh,
But
wow.
like I had to figure out all of that myself, logistics, EDI, warehousing, PO processing, invoicing, all of that. And so, we worked out the kinks, and my buyer was so gracious. She was like, it's okay. We'll get it on the shelf. I'm not worried about. Keep me updated. And that's where I always say, just if you don't need to share too much information, but you need to share enough information that the buyer is educated, that they
Yes.
know what's happening, and they can give you, the leeway that you need. Or there will be, I mean, there could be consequences, and those consequences are deserved, but like they might not. give you the fees, et cetera, if you're communicating with them up front.
Yep, agreed.
So that's what I always did with her. I was just very forward with my communication and kept her in the loop. We finally launch into all 1,000 stores, and the story gets just it's bad. We launch into all the stores. We've been there for like 2 weeks, and everything's kind of slowly trickling into all of the stores. They're merchandising it, etc.
Right.
My uncle, who lives in Arkansas, calls my mom and is like, "Hey, I'm at Walmart, and for some reason, the jars aren't scanning at the register." And I'm like, "Oh, that's got to be a fluke. That's so weird. Maybe they just don't have it in the system yet." Then my brother, who lives in another part of Arkansas, does the same thing, also reaches out to me then and was like, "Hey, it's not working at the scanner." And I was like, "Oh my God, oh my God, oh my God." But this isn't, I don't have it in Indianapolis. It's not in the Indiana store. So I can't go to a store myself. So I'm calling other people, "Can you go check out the store, try to buy it?" It's not scanning anywhere. 100,000 jars and our
Oh
UPC
my
codes didn't work.
gosh.
So again, I reach out. I sent a DM to my buyer, who I was like friends with at the time. I sent her an Instagram DM because it was on the weekend, and I was like, "SOS, shit's bad. I don't know what I'm gonna do." She was like, "Okay, okay, I'm on it. I'm gonna go to a store myself and I'm gonna try it." Same thing happens to her. So I became like the detective of a lifetime to try to figure out, how
What
did this
happened?
happen?
Yeah.
What's going on? Turns out it was my label company, who shall not be named. They were so kind and wonderful, but they were this local label company that printed all of our labels for us. And we did a digital print of the labels because I thought, what if I want to change them one day? So I did a digital print. And in the process of digital printing, one of the lines of the UPC code didn't transfer. Just a total fluke. But it was on every jar.
Oh my gosh. Every
Because the
hundred
UPC
thousand.
codes, yeah, they would scan. If I scanned it on my computer, if I printed it at home, it would scan. I was like, this doesn't make sense. And we
Oh,
realized it was in the printing process. So they owned their mistake. God bless them. Like truly it was, they could have lied. They could have like just ignored every phone call that
right.
I made to them. But they owned their mistake, and they personally paid for merchandising in every single store. They printed little stickers of the UPC codes. They went to our warehouse up in Chicago. They brought everything into their warehouse here in Indianapolis, and they hand stickered tens of thousands of jars themselves. And then they paid for merchandising, for merchandisers to go into every single store, every 1,000 stores,
Wow.
to resticker the jars on the shelf.
That's amazing. The fact that, to your point, they admitted it, but then they actually, doubled down and did the right thing to help support.
Right.
And the
Right.
fact that Walmart didn't just take it back all off the shelf and return it back to you.
Oh, it was, that's what they should have done. I mean, in any other situation, that's what would have happened. They would have charged that all back to me.
Yeah.
And again, this is why I go back to relationship building and how powerful that is. I was so honest with my buyer about it, and I was just like, "Here's what's happening." And she was like, "Just fix it and we'll move on." And I mean, it was just so, so gracious. She didn't give me any fees for anything that
Oh,
happened
wow.
that time. She just kind of like stopped it because we should have received, tens of thousands of dollars worth of fees. And because they couldn't check out the product, people were, the people at the register were just like, I don't know, let's call it $5 and just like move on with, I mean, so
Uh,
like we had legitimate sales. It was a disaster.
yeah.
So it was a rough way to start into Walmart.
Into Walmart for you're like, maybe if it was like the local where you could just kind of,
Right,
change a
right.
couple of
And this is why, we talk about just scaling and, what to know going into scaling. These are some things I could have never, how would I have ever gotten around that?
yeah.
Um, you know, and I just had to figure out the solution in real time. What do I even do when this happens? I had no idea, but I just did what felt logical. I'm like, well, we have to fix it. We just, You find a way, you ask around, what is a merchant? I didn't know what a merchandiser was. I didn't realize that there were companies that even did this, that would go into the stores and resticker
Yeah, how would you
jars.
even know? Yeah.
But I learned it real fast.
Oh my. How long did it take to get them all stickered?
Honest, it probably took about 2 to 3 months, I think 6 months total, to really see it all come through where we were finally having clean sales. And at that point, man, it was so frustrating. Because beyond that, we also had jars that were leaking. We had jars that were breaking because it was glass. And so in transit, it would like break in the back room. It was just so many things with that entire rollout that was such a mess. So, we got paid our first big chunk of cash. And I was like, oh, I'm feeling rich, like I'm feeling top of the world. And so I used that as, my moment to say, like, what do I want to do with this money to help the brand take steps forward? And I decided to do a full rebrand, actually, of Revival because everything about that process, I just feel like was so messy and gave such a negative impression to consumers about our jars on the shelf because they couldn't check it out at the register and it was the leakiness and all the things that went into it were just, I feel like honestly a pretty negative start into onto these national shelves. So I decided let's just rebrand the whole thing. Let's move into plastic jars. Let's give a whole new vibe. Let's come out fresh and say like we are not that anymore. We figured things out and we're going to come out new for you. So that's what I did in 2021.
Wow. So how did you tell the consumers or how did they know that? Because, sometimes when you change packaging, and I think this was a pretty differentiated change, that this is still the same product. Was there any kind of thing that you did specifically to get that message out there?
We did a lot on social media, was as much as I could afford at the time, was just like, well, let's do some fun stuff. We sent it out to a ton of influencers, like a big box of like a PR box, and just made it really fun and exciting and talked about it as much as we could on social media. But I really didn't know how to translate that on the shelf. And, now I would probably hire a consultant of some sort in like a merchandising group to help me do this better. Because I honestly still don't know the right answer. When you're dealing with such a large retailer, that transition is super messy. And the only thing I could do is like, well, you're just going to have both jars on the shelf until the other ones sell out, and then these ones fill up the space. That's literally all I could think of. And I'm
Yeah.
like, hopefully, people will just sell through the other jars, and we'll just have the new ones. Like that was, I didn't know what to do. I was like, just gonna start selling the new jars. That's all.
But you knew that was the right decision just in regards to like being able to change like the packaging and all
Totally.
that stuff. So did you see a change in sales once you kind of transitioned from glass to the plastic, the brighter colors and all that?
Unfortunately, no. That was one of those moments that I was thinking this is going to change everything, and I'd say this is my advice too to other emerging brands, other brands that are, in the similar space. Because I had such limited funding. I mean, I didn't have any, investment capital. I had, everything was bootstrapped. Um, this is all I had was, the new brand and social media. And I was thinking that it would just sell itself on the shelf. Once it's there, it looks great, it's bright, it's fun.
People are just going to buy it.
They're just gonna buy it. Like people are like me, right? Like where they buy it, it looks cute. And the reality is no, it didn't change our velocity like at all. So that was really disappointing to me because I thought it would change everything.
Yeah.
And it didn't. The only thing that did change was it became more clear to us what our top flavors were. That people started gravitating towards the same three flavors at Walmart. So our cinnamon chai spice, our raw cacao coconut, and our hemp super spread or hemp super seed. became our top three flavors. And it was really obvious that the other ones had like no traction. And these three became, the leaders. But beyond that, it was just we kind of stayed in the same spot. And I think it was a good reminder to me too that consumers care less about the packaging than we think they do as brands. They are buying it because they like it.
Hmm.
They're buying it because they enjoy that product. So we have the same people that started buying it when it was in the old packaging, just kept buying it in the new packaging. It wasn't like it attracted a whole new customer set. And maybe we would have been able to see a bigger jump if we had been in 1,000 stores. Maybe if it was a smaller set of stores, we could have seen, real metrics. But because at Walmart, we were so diversified in the types of stores and the location of stores that we were in that our velocity really just kind of like leveled out across the board and always stayed around the same low velocity. And so it was hard to really understand who is our customer and how is it changing over time. I think we just really had a very loyal customer base at Walmart and they just stuck with us no matter what. But it wasn't like we were gaining a lot of new customers along the way.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
And then so I know on LinkedIn you're pretty transparent about the fact that after I think 4 years in Walmart, you kind of decided with your buyer to exit.
Yep.
And that's related a lot to your customer and understanding like who they are and where they shop, right? So what kind of were your biggest like lessons, outcomes, and what did that kind of exit look like coming out of such a big brand?
Yeah. So, like I said, our experience at Walmart was pretty much, it was always about the same, over the last 4 years. Once we switched our packaging, we finally got really clean sales, and we were like, okay, we're pretty much just staying here no matter what. It still wasn't good enough. And that's where, for my sake, the velocity still wasn't there enough to validate staying in that retailer. And the buyer wasn't happy either. I mean, she could replace our product with something at a lower price point that's going to sell better. And that's part of understanding our target demographic, that as much as our consumer is shopping at Walmart, they're not shopping there all the time. And so it's important to recognize that, you want to be in a space where a consumer is shopping there all the time. This
Hmm.
is their main store. And for Revival, that's not Walmart. It's probably Target, it's at Whole Foods, it's at Sprouts, it's at Fresh Time, it's at Market District, et cetera. But the Walmart consumer is not gravitating toward a $10 jar of almond butter on a regular basis. And so it was coming to terms with that and recognizing too that my personal resources as a business owner and that head of sales and everything else that I do was going into Walmart more than anything else. So I really wanted to put our focus into other more aligned retailers, but the reality is Walmart required so much of me to keep it on track and to keep our velocity at least where it was and to try to manage our business there, that I wasn't even able to focus our business where it should be on where our target demographic actually is on a regular basis. And so it was coming to terms with that and just recognizing that, this isn't working for us or for Walmart anymore. Like, and my buyer and I, and we had a new buyer at this time, but she and I just had a really candid conversation. Again, I treat each other like humans, and I'm just like, hey, this is hard. I'm struggling to keep our business here afloat. And I should add too, the cost of doing business with Walmart has increased so much over the years. Not necessarily Walmart directly, but everything that goes into doing business with Walmart.
Mm.
It's logistics, it's EDI, it's softwares, it's inventory management, it's everything that goes into your business at Walmart. Walmart technically is, pretty fair at paying on time and paying, fully what they owe you. I mean, for the most part, they were pretty fair to do business with. Um, but, the cost of doing business had increased so much, and I couldn't lower my prices on the shelf, nor should I, because, I mean, I couldn't afford to lower our prices. And then I couldn't increase our prices because no one's going to buy a jar over $10, on the
Yeah.
shelf. So again, we just had this conversation where I'm like, this isn't working. It's honestly burying me as a small business owner, and I can't keep it up. And so we had received a pretty large invoice from them for, you know, products that were what's the word, like over the swell charge. And so it was like unsellable merchandise that, it wasn't legitimate. Actually, some of it was still from that old inventory. It was like
Uh,
found in the back room. Who knows the story behind it? I'm like, I can make up a story about where that came from, but I don't know it. I don't know the honest truth because this was from an audit that happened 6 months ago. And so I'm like, I can't deal with this. I don't have the capacity to deal with this anymore. And so my buyer and I just, talked about that. And she was like, Rachel, I believe in your brand so much, and I don't want to be the reason that your brand fails. So, like, I think that we just mutually agree to walk away. And, I will do everything I can to support you in that process. And so, I mean, it was an unreal experience. She was so helpful to me, and really did hold my hand in the process of stepping away from Walmart. And I did have a very fortunate experience that she allowed me to step away without taking any additional responsibility for the products that they had in inventory still.
oh, that was good.
um, and I think that's part of where, Walmart can get a bad rap as being this like massive, like brand eating machine. But the reality is, like, it is still full of people that care about small businesses
Yeah.
too. And they've got to make their numbers work, but they're not trying to ruin you in the process. But they also can't give personal attention to every single brand. So as great as my story was, I also recognize that some other brands could hear that and be like, well, that sucks because I didn't have that experience. And, like, it's hard because it just comes down to personal relationship too at the end of the day, where, like, I really spent time being transparent with my buyer, and she appreciated that she was like, your candor in this situation is refreshing. And she was like, honestly, it's helpful for me to understand how can I better support other emerging brands or other small businesses that are trying to come into Walmart, and how can I keep them from having the same experience.
Yeah.
So I said, yeah, literally send them my way. If you have any other brands that you're vetting to come onto the shelf and you think they might not be ready, I will talk to them too,
Oh, that's
like,
great.
help share my story of, like, there's so much that it did that was so great for me, that and I said this in my LinkedIn post. Well, it worked and it didn't.
Mm-hmm.
It worked for me, and that it did help me to scale in the way that I wanted it to scale. I, got out of my home kitchen. I was able to, find a co-packer. I was able to scale the business, and I learned
So much.
so much. Like, I feel like I've heard a few people tell me when I say this story, like, I've lived like multiple lives in the last 10 years of the business growth. And so I feel like I can do anything at this point. And I have learned to love the business even more than I did. I just had no understanding of what I was getting into at the time. But I have just learned to love the industry. I love the people in the industry. And, I love supporting and helping and, mentoring other small businesses too that are going through the same things as I am. Because if I can help somebody else, even in sharing my story here, to not go through the same trials that I had, gosh, I would love that for them. I want other emerging brands and other small businesses to be successful, but you do have to go in with your eyes wide open and, yeah, say yes and figure it out later, but also continue to, like, ask for help.
I was going to ask you that. Do you, like in hindsight, would you wish you
Yeah.
didn't say yes, or you still felt like the entire thing is definitely something you would like ride the roller coaster again?
Um,
Or would you change it in any way? Would you have said, "Can we go back to the 300 stores instead of 1,000?"
I think the only thing I would do differently, honestly, is I probably would have tried to surround myself with more support along the process, because I loved the journey, but I think that I honestly could have been more successful had I had more of a team around me. I mean, I really was and still am doing so much of this on my own. And I've had, some consultants, I've had some, contractors and, this and that. I have an operations manager right now that has become like a sister and best friend to me in the process because it's just her and I, doing most of it. And I think that if I were to do things differently, I would have, when I got that first PO for Walmart, that's when I would have reached out to get capital, to get investment capital. I just didn't understand it enough, and I felt like I was still too small to ask for anything. And this is also women, to be honest, like are, so often, and especially like a mom, and I'm just like here in the Midwest, just like doing my thing. I'm not thinking like I just wouldn't have the confidence at the time. I didn't have the confidence to think I should ask somebody to give me their money.
Yeah. Yeah.
But like what I really needed, and this is where I wish that a mentor would have stepped in at the time and said, like, you know, don't go through the bank for a loan right now. Like get investment capital so that you can bring in a bigger team, so that every dollar is spent on building an infrastructure that can really support this growth.
Yeah.
Because I was always just trying to spend as little as possible because every dollar felt like borrowed money, and
Yeah.
so is an investment capital, but at least you have these built-in mentors and investors that they're invested in your success as a brand and they want to see your brand succeed, and they know that that's going to mean like build out a stronger team, bring in this agency, get this broker. They know and understand the industry. If you have the right investors, if you have the right strategic investors, like they can help guide you in that process. And I just felt like I was on an island for so much of this. And if I were to do anything, I would go back and surround myself with more support. And now I find myself, and I'm happy to be where I'm at, and I'm grateful for everything the journey brought to me. And I am happy that I still, have this brand and it's all mine, and I feel so proud of everything that I've built.
Yeah.
Uh, but there's a cost to my sanity in the process.
But you've also, to your point, you've learned so much too. I think that will definitely help to elevate you a lot faster and grow a lot faster when you continue to go to whatever, next level that you're thinking of in regards to expansion with the brand. So I think that's important. So what are next steps? Like, what's next for the business? Any new flavors? Any thoughts on kind of where you want to go? Like, do you want to go back to big box in a different way?
Yeah. So right now, I've been pulling our focus back into more local, regional, and that's in like Southern California. That's, you know, really focusing on some more of those regional chains that we could be most successful at that are focused on natural and specialty, as well as food service. We've been dialing in a lot more on food service, where we sell our bulk almond butter for juice bars and restaurants, and that's been super fun. We also launched some individual squeeze packs, and that was just launched in March. And so those are going into a lot of coffee shops and airports. And so it's been fun to kind of explore these different facets and different use cases of the almond butter. But as we continue to, this next year, looking at 2025, I'm really exploring what strategic partnerships could look like to help bring in that support that I need in the brand to continue growing. I'm not opposed to, going national again, with the right retailer, whether that's Sprouts, Whole Foods, et cetera. We have some great conversations going with some of them right now. But I want to do it the right way.
Yeah.
And so if I'm going to stay on this path, which I do love this brand so much. I love what I've created. I love the product line. I want to innovate into other, snacks and pantry staples that need a revival because that's why I did this all in the
Mm,
first place. It's to see things done
differently.
differently
Yeah.
and to find products that I want to buy on the shelf, that I want to buy for my family. And so I've been doing a lot of personal work on what could that look like? How do I achieve the same result? And I don't care about having my ego boosted through being like, I'm the one who did it all. I don't need to do it all. I'm actually really okay with not doing it all. I want to see this brand thrive, and I want to surround myself with some strategic partners that want the same things, that we can do this together. So that's what I'm exploring right now as a brand.
No, that's so exciting. I love to just to touch on the fact that you're getting into restaurants in different kind of avenues outside of traditional. Because I saw you also kind of partnered with a ice cream place, right?
Yes, that's where, just stay open-minded
Yeah.
to different use cases and opportunities that might come your way because that was such a fun random. I was like, oh, I would never think of an ice cream. It's like a soft serve ice cream place that's in Salt Lake City, and they love it. And I'm like, cool. Okay, now this teaches me that I can reach out to some more ice cream places.
Yeah.
Like just how are they doing that? And then how can I use that to help us find other similar business? And, let the opportunities lead you, like I always say,
Yeah.
say
Yeah.
yes. But let the opportunities lead you because it might open up something really new and amazing. And I think that's even part of my lesson in walking away from Walmart. It's not a failure and it's not, the end of my story.
Right.
It's opening up more opportunities for me and the brand to thrive.
Yeah.
So, it's being open to, it's okay to close that door so that these other doors can open.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Because sometimes you won't get those other doors to open when you're still kind of
Right?
holding on to something that really should be let go. So yeah,
Exactly.
that's just such a great conversation. I really appreciate you coming on and telling that story. And I think it's just going to help a lot of emerging brands just to understand what it looks like when you're, going out into such a big arena and really not kind of knowing all of the things that you need to do and kind of working through understanding, say yes, but then to your point, like figure it out. And there's the other ways to figure it out. Maybe it's not just you taking it all on yourself, but
Yeah.
also, identifying people that can come in and help support you to really, continue to elevate. So I think that's
Exactly.
great. So just to close out, can you just let everybody know where they can buy Revival, where they can follow you, the brands, so that we continue to kind of, support you and see what's kind of next in the future?
For sure. So, I mean, the best way that anybody listening can find our product is online. You can look us up on revivalfoodco.com is the easiest way to find us. And then, we're always launching into new stores every week, every month. I feel like we're getting into a lot of fun new, independent retailers and chains. And so you can follow along on that journey on Instagram. We talk about a lot of that. So you can find us Revival Food Co. Or it's just Revival Food Co. on Instagram. And we're also on TikTok doing ridiculous things. So you can follow along there. And then when you click through on those, you'll see my personal profile as well. And I talk a lot more on my own personal accounts about my journey and, where I'm going next.
No, that's
So,
great. Thank you so
yeah.
much.